Can you see it? This is the rally stash, but I'm also wearing it in honor of Florida Sheriff Billy Woods, because this dude has got to be the hero of the day. And I say that knowing that Biden and Kamala just spoke, and I heard some of it, and I know that you'd probably think, depending on what either of them said, they may be the right's hero of the day. Today, it's definitely Sheriff Billy Woods. Just check this out. This guy says, quote, "It's no longer a debate." Okay, this is the Florida sheriff who has told all of his deputies, "You're not wearing a mask. Period. That's it. You're not allowed." Also, visitors at the police department aren't allowed to wear one either. He did say that the sheriffs or the deputies, if they're at the hospital, if they're responding to something at a doctor's office or a health clinic or something where there is exposure, then sure, they can wear one if that place is requiring them. Otherwise, officers, you are not to wear a mask. Let's dig into this. But before we do, if you would, just click like on the video. Make sure you're subscribed down there in the bottom right so you can see that you can hover over that, click subscribe, and then let's jump into this. It says on Tuesday, so yesterday, as Florida set a daily record for COVID deaths, Marion County Sheriff Billy Woods prohibited his deputies from wearing masks at work. His order, which also applies to visitors to the sheriff's office, carves out exemptions for officers in some locations, including hospitals and when dealing with people who are high risk, as I had said before. In an email to the sheriff's department shared with the Washington Post, Woods, the sheriff, disputed the idea that masks are a consensus approach to battling the pandemic. Well, no, he said what is true. That is, Fauci even has said masks are good. No, they're not good. No, they are good. No, they're not good. No, they were never good. No, they are always good. You've had tons of doctors say, well, if it's not an actual respirator, then it's not airtight, and that microbe is getting through, even in N95. That only stops at 0.3 microns, and the coronavirus is much smaller than that. So, this continues, quote, "We can debate and argue all day of why and why not. The fact is, the amount of professionals, that is the number of professionals that give the reason why we should, I can find the exact number of professionals that say why we shouldn't," unquote. That's what he wrote in the email. He said to his staff, and he sent it over to the Post. They first reported it over at the Ocala Star-Banner. It says, a majority of epidemiologists and other health experts say that face masks and social distancing are key to slowing the spread of the novel coronavirus, which has ravaged Florida. Well, you got to think about this for a second. And I put a pin in this entire story and just think, why do you want to slow the spread if spread and a quick boom, knock it out, have herd immunity and be done with it is the way to deal with something like this? A cold, a flu, any kind of viral pneumonia that's going around, you would think that would be the way to deal with it. That's the way Sweden's dealt with it, and they seem to be doing pretty well. But they want to slow the spread so that this continues to bleed you dry. They want the U.S. economy to die by a death of 1,000 cuts. That's kind of what this. So we need to slow the spread, make sure that we don't just peak and have a bunch of people die. Well, that was the initial reason we, shut everything down for 15 and then 30 days. But we're going on how many days now? I mean, we don't even know. We don't even know because it's over 100. We've been, locked down in certain places and shutting down most of the economy for 5 or 6 months now. I mean, it's getting stupid. Anyways, I digress. It says the state, which has recorded more than 542,000 cases, more than 8,600 deaths, added another 277 more deaths yesterday. Marion County also set a record for daily deaths on Tuesday with 13. So he has 13 people in the entire county who died from coronavirus on Tuesday. But he's telling his police officers, you do not wear a mask. Fine. Want to know why? Because the masks don't help. That's why. And because those 13 people, well, do we know who they were? Do we know that they didn't already have cancer or get hit by a car? Do we know that they actually had coronavirus, or they didn't just die of pneumonia and we didn't have a test because we didn't care because we just called it corona? We already know. I showed you in the other videos that these testing, the numbers of tests are lie. I mean, it's a lie. 20 million positive cases worldwide. They say 5 million in the United States. But they also admit that all of the early testing kits that made up half of those numbers, that out of the 20 million, 10 million occurred in the first 6 months. And they admit all of those tests, they can't determine which of them were faulty. That would show you a false positive because of the way that they were manufactured incorrectly. So it's interesting to see, hey, we're going to smear the sheriff because he's banning his officers from wearing masks. I thought the left was all for the police being identifiable, that you could know who they were, see their face, get their badge number, and instead, you have this sheriff who really probably watched, maybe he watched The Watchmen. Maybe he's like, I don't want my officers to do anything in a mask that they think they can get away with. I mean, this just keeps everyone safer, truly, because they're not going to catch coronavirus if they are healthy, if they are taking hydroxychloroquine, or just simply honestly, I don't believe that you could catch coronavirus by not wearing a mask. I don't wear a mask anytime I go anywhere. Oops. I don't. And I don't have coronavirus. And it's been 5 months. So explain to me how you first say masks are for when sick people are feeling symptoms and they're traveling out in public. They can wear a mask to protect other people. So if they cough or breathe or anything, it's in the mask. That's why the people in China or Japan, when you see them wearing masks traveling around, that's why they do it, because they don't want to get someone else sick. But now they say, well, you may not know if you have corona, so you have to wear a mask for other people's safety. I may not know if I have it. Okay, so you're saying asymptomatic cases are first, well, we don't know how many they could be. Now we know actually the majority of people are asymptomatic. That's what we know. They stopped doing the randomized antibody tests because they found, holy smokes, so many more people have the antibodies like they did in California. They found like 60% of the population already have the antibodies for this. So they said, pump the brakes on any more of those studies because it'll show however many more positive cases where no one's ever felt sick. So are we looking at the tip of the iceberg of all the people that are sick? And that tip just being the people who are absolutely at their worst, who already have comorbidities, who are already going to a hospital, who are already on death's door, and then this comes knocking. It is literally the straw that broke the camel's back. The 160,000 people that have died that we say had corona, how many had it? Of those, how many needed to have it? In other words, how many were in elder care facilities or old folks' homes who didn't need to have coronavirus exposed to them, but had it anyways because they had Democrat governors? Whittle that number down a little further. How many young people have this on paper but never got tested and then died from something else? False, poor intubation, a pierced lung. Someone gets a car accident, someone has a heart attack, but later they say, well, they are also symptomatic, so we're going to call it corona death. When you get down to the actual numbers of how many people died from coronavirus, how many thousand do you think it actually is? And do you really believe it's 162,000? I don't. So this is from the police chief saying, my chief and I talked about it, or this is the sheriff rather, saying, I know we're getting way off topic, bringing it back onto the masks. It says from the sheriff, quote, my chief and I talked about it. We'll never write a fine. We're just not going to do it. And that's what he told the radio on Monday. So then obviously the next day he comes out and sends the email saying, by the way, you're not even allowed to wear a mask. Well, great. So they won't fine anyone for not wearing one, and he's stopped his sheriff, his deputies from wearing one. Gosh, I gotta fix it. I keep saying that. Quote, in light of the current events, when it comes to the sentiment and or hatred towards law enforcement in our country today, this is being done to ensure there is clear communication and for identification purposes, as I said, of any individual walking into the lobby. So a police officer walks somewhere, you know who they are at all times. If someone walks into the police department, he says, you're also not allowed to wear a mask. You're not allowed to wear a mask. If you go to the Marion County Police Department, the sheriff's office, you will not be allowed to wear a mask inside because they want to know who you are, because they get death threats. Because people come and tell them, we're going to fucking kill you. That's what they tell these cops. And then the cops say, okay, well, you're not allowed to wear a mask. So the sheriff argues, working mask-free hasn't led to a spike of infections. He's got 900 people in his unit. This is what I've been saying. If you don't wear a mask for so long, you can be proof that it doesn't actually help. It's like if you shut down one state and you leave another state wide open and they're comparable and they then have a comparable experience with the virus, the only thing you prove is the lockdown didn't have an impact. This says, since the beginning of the pandemic, the operation of this office has not changed and no wearing of a mask has been put in place. But obviously now he's banned it. So tell me what you think of that, because I got to imagine if you live in a place where your sheriff bans his deputies from wearing masks and then tells you, by the way, I will never ticket anyone for not wearing a mask, how many people there do you think go, okay, and pop their masks off and never put one on again? I know I would. I know I would. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Also, like this video. I'd appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and then do everything else that you can do to keep America afloat.